Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Actually, I'll dislodge this thing. Hopefully everyone online can hear me okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the RASC Edmonton Center November monthly meeting. I'm Jay Lavender, currently presiding president and host of tonight's event. So it is now 7:29 and I call our meeting to order. So the first thing right off the top of the meeting is, did anybody hear the song that was playing before the meeting started? What was the name of the song? New Moon on Monday. That's right. I thought that was kind of appropriate. Thanks to Mark Zalchik for that suggestion. Okay, so good lineup tonight. And again, just a reminder, so we will start the first half of the meeting here will occur here in the Zeidler Dome. We will take a break and then we will unfortunately have to terminate the Zoom sessions and we will all migrate over to the IMAX Theater after the break for the Deep Sky documentary. A couple of housekeeping items first. So the October 16th meeting minutes were posted to the center's OneDrive. Are there any errors and or omissions? Anyone? Okay, based on that, I will hand it over to Madam Secretary.
I move that the meeting minutes of October be approved as posted on the OneDrive.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Anywhere? Mike? No, Dave. Dave. I'll have to get your last name from you, Dave. Give it to the secretary. Thank you, Dave. All right. Any discussion at all? For all our members then, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. So the next item on our list, we call him our guest presenter, but I mean, he's a longtime member of the center. And of course, as everyone knows, we have spent a significant amount of center money and center resources, members' time and effort, of course, bringing the Black Nugget Lake Observatory to fruition. And throughout that entire process, Warren Finlay had the wherewithal to document each stage of that process, I'll call it, and has put together a pretty amazing documentary. So Warren, if you'd like to come up. Let's see if we can get this.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so as Jay mentioned, what I'd like to do is show you a 22-minute documentary that I put together about the making of Black Nugget Lake Observatory. And if you haven't yet gone out to look through the telescope, you really have to do it. I mean, it's a bucket list item to look through a 32-inch telescope is just truly an incredible experience. And I would highly recommend you get out there one of these days. Thanks.
Start. Hold on a minute. You have to exit out of your other PowerPoint. Okay. Stop sharing and reshare. Yeah, play for everybody on that.
So while they're getting this set up, I'll just say a few more words. So when I first proposed the idea of putting a large club telescope out at Black Nugget Lake Observatory, I thought maybe it'd take about 5 years or so to accomplish. Had I known it would take 20 years or more, I guess now, to finish the project, I asked myself, would I have done it? Would I have proposed and pursued the project? And when you look at what the facility we have out there now, you know, the amazing 32-inch scope and the facility with the visitor center, I think it's a pretty resounding yes. I would do it all over again if I was given a chance. But if I could go back 20 years and talk to my younger self, I would give myself one piece of advice. And that advice would be to buy as many Netflix shares as you possibly can. Now, kidding aside, it's been quite a journey, and I'd like to show this documentary, and I hope maybe some of you will get some inspiration from it. Maybe you got some grand astronomy dream or vision for the club that you like to see happen. And what I'd say to you is just make it happen. Just do it. Get a good team together and make it happen. So let's get this show going.
An hour's drive east of Edmonton on the northern edge of the Alberta prairie, fields of grain dominate the landscape. A handful of old grain elevators stand testament to the annual harvest that has supported generations of farmers. Because this farmland remains sparsely populated, the all-night glow of city lights has yet to interfere with the view of the night sky. This allows astronomers to see many thousands of stars and deep sky objects that can't be seen in the glaring lights of Edmonton. Away from city lights, larger telescopes give brighter views of astronomy targets. But larger telescopes cost more and are more difficult to move. As a result, most amateur astronomers settle for telescopes that are smaller and more portable. However, a permanently mounted telescope can be much larger, giving it many times the light gathering capacity. That power would be nullified by city lights. Which is why, nestled among grain fields and pastures, a Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Observatory has risen that will allow amateur astronomers and other members of the public to view the universe through one of Canada's largest dark sky telescopes. The site is located on public land near Black Nugget Lake Park. Since 2004, the site has been the home of the Northern Prairie Star Party, an annual autumn gathering of amateur astronomers.
I was actively searching for a dark sky site to build an observatory, and it was in 2004 at the Northern Prairie Star Party that the idea solidified in my mind that this would be a great spot. So I pitched the idea to the Executive Council of the Edmonton RASC in that fall, and then in 2005 in the spring pitched it to Beaver County Council and was given the green light by both parties to go ahead.
We always thought that it would be nice to have an observatory out there. And originally we were talking about a kind of a roll-off roof style observatory.
Site selection and land use leases were finalized over several years, culminating in clearing and leveling of the site in 2006. The project then came to a halt and lay dormant for several years because budget constraints made the proposed telescope unaffordable. That is until 2016, when a high-quality 32-inch mirror was generously donated by amateur astronomer Bob Drew.
And I thought about selling. Then I recalled the star parties I went to where somebody would bring a 25-inch in Vancouver or a 36, and what a privilege it was for people to see a deep sky object brightly, not just a little smudge in a telescope, which is still fun, but something similar to photographs. And what a great experience that was, because you would be seeing nature concurrently with as you look at it, not on a screen, and this was a privilege, I thought. So I thought I would give it to the Edmonton Centre.
With the donated mirror, a newly appointed Black Nugget Lake Observatory team took up the torch. Wasting no time, the team immediately relocated the Society's 18-inch portable telescope to Black Nugget Lake Park, allowing users a taste of what can be seen at this dark site with a good-sized telescope. At the same time, the team worked to raise the funds needed to build the much bigger 32-inch telescope.
We knew that we needed to raise funds for completion of the observatory, and so we did several rounds of funding through the corporate sector, 2 rounds of funding through the corporate sector, both of which failed to generate any money.
After 2 more years of fundraising and permit filing, ground was finally broken in August of 2018 to place the foundations that would support the telescope pier.
The notable thing about the land where we have the Black Nugget Lake Observatory is that it's an old prairie strip mine. And for many years, a number of companies mined it for coal. And then they left. And the interesting thing is that the nature of the subsoils were such that Mother Nature was able to essentially reclaim it herself.
Because of its past history as an open-pit coal mine, soil strength was poor and resulted in the need for much more expensive foundations. This put the project's budget in jeopardy. However, a timely stroke of good fortune, and after dogged grant application writing, the project was awarded a major infusion of grant money, allowing the foundations to be laid just in the nick of time before an early winter cold snap shut the concrete construction window.
Well, we got that done 1 week. The very next week, we got the pier done. The very following week, we got the perimeter. And then within 2 or 3 days, the weather just went horrible. Like, we would have been delayed 2 or 3 weeks, and then it would have been too late. We wouldn't have had it done this year at all.
Building a 32-inch telescope on a shoestring budget was only possible because master telescope builder Roman Unk donated his time to design and construct the telescope, saving the project hundreds of thousands of dollars. Total project costs were further brought into the affordable range with the donation of a 14-foot observatory dome from the University of Alberta.
The dome was originally built in 1967 by Astro. It was a steel structure with an aluminum coating on it, and it stood up really well, considering it's 50 years old. But it had some mechanical problems. There was a bit of staining. I think someone had thrown a rock onto the shutter, which I had to pound out. And then we had to replace a bunch of fasteners, and we replaced the wheels. But really, it's still in good shape, so we were lucky.
Squeezing such a large telescope into the donated dome required an unusual folded telescope design.
The folded design actually solved quite a few issues. It shortened the tube length by about 23 inches. It decreased the height of the eyepiece almost 4 feet, which is a huge thing. But what it meant was that we now have a telescope that can fit into an observatory that's 14 feet in diameter, which we got for nothing from the University of Alberta. We would never be able to do that, have a huge rolling roof. People have to be on ladders, 7 feet above the ground.
With the foundations in place, RASC volunteers refurbished the old dome and built the observatory walls. Pushing through unseasonably cold autumn weather with several very early snowfalls, the team fought hard to get as much building done before the winter set in. With the dome roof installed, the team heaved a sigh of relief and celebrated completion of this stage of the construction. As northern lights danced through the long winter nights, Roman bustled about his shop, continuing the long process of building the telescope. With time to assess finances, the team now had to deal with several unexpected cost overruns. Generous charitable discounts and support by many suppliers and contractors on the project eased the financial burden.
I love helping out people that have that kind of drive and dedication and grassroots engineering and design, and they want to do it right. So it's great to help out people with that.
Despite financial and in-kind support from various sources, the team was still short of funding to complete the final stages, and more funding applications were filed.
The request to the government of Alberta took a long time to get a decision, and so there were times also where the lack of getting a decision or even a timescale frame for a decision made us wonder if we were going to be able to generate the money for this project. But we kept working on it, in trusting that that somehow, some way, we would find the money to make this project occur.
As spring thaw arrived, the team renewed the push and continued work on the observatory buildings through the year. By now, it was apparent that saving money by relying on the volunteer team to do the remaining construction meant that the facility would not be ready in 2019. With the arrival of another winter, Roman continued working on the telescope in his shop, while the rest of the team worked on finishing the interior of the observatory building. The following spring and summer, the team finished readying the observatory to receive the telescope. The arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020 prevented further on-site work, but special permission to access the site was soon obtained to continue working, using precautions to protect against transmission of the virus.
And COVID intervened, but that's all behind us, and I thought I would see if I could accelerate the completion of the project so that people could enjoy using it, and so I decided to augment the previous gift of the mirror and some equipment with some financial assistance to expedite it.
And then of course we did have the issue with the drives. Now that cost us 9 months minimum, almost a year. But we did run into issues with the machine shop in terms of trying to get the accuracy we wanted. And we also had issues with heat treatment. It did cause too much warping, which gave us great pains. Now what's interesting is that I've been keeping it in contact with Bob Drew quite a bit. He knows where things are going. And so toward the end, after so many months, he was even asking, is there any way that he can help us, right? So when I said, no, I kept on battling it down, trying to get the solution, right? It finally gets to the point where, no, the machine shop gave up on it. They didn't want to spend, they had bigger jobs. They were not interested in our work at all. And that's when Bob came through and literally gave the extra funding required to, rebuild the drives in a totally different way. From then on, it was all the other tasks that were left behind. Stuff like assembling of the motors, certain parts of them, adding heaters because things don't work at -40 very well without little heat. Then we did a lot of painting, and aluminum painting was not fun. You have to acid prep it and allodyne it and all that fun stuff. And we had the work crews going. It was interesting to see that, dressed up like spacesuit, like all this evil stuff we were working with. But everybody pulled in. The painting went well. Assembly was pretty good. All the little tiny parts, there's 1,000 little tiny parts, even little things like the brushes to sweep the drive as it's turning to keep it clean. All that machining's been done, the anodizing's been done. The structure for the telescope framework is done. Painting for that was interesting. But it's all done in Endura paint, very, very solid, good stuff.
Nearly 20 years after the project began, and nearly 7 years after the beginning of the construction of the telescope, the Unique Drew telescope was finally lifted into place in the summer of 2023.
Lift day was one of those magical days when everything just goes perfectly. We had prepared for weeks for that day. We had everything tied up, covered up, roped up. The crane operator was 2 hours early. He said, I can come early. You want me to come early? So, yes. We got it all lifted onto the trailer. It went perfectly. Then we drove out to the observatory, and we're standing there scratching our head because, the weather was okay that day, but it wasn't going to be very good for the next few days. The crane operator we'd hired to come out to put everything into the observatory was there just on, I think, on a whim. He says, I don't think the weather's going to be very good tomorrow. How about we do it right now? And he didn't have his truck here. He scooted home, got his crane, and we lifted everything into the dome in jig time. We got the roof closed a half hour before it started to rain. And for the next 3 days, it was lousy. But the dome was shut, the scope was in, everything was tied together. It was perfect.
I think we'd all agree that this is the, quote, little project that grew and got very complicated in the process. Right from, ensuring that we have a sublease agreement with the county and the province for doing such a project, right through to all the building details and the making of the scope itself, and all the cooperation and goodwill of our suppliers and supporters, and many members who've been involved and put in hundreds and hundreds of hours on this project. I think it's quite a wonderful achievement.
Personally, I've enjoyed the camaraderie of all the people that I've been here to work with. They've been great. They've changed my aspect and how I work at the club. Now I'm putting more time in on other projects at the club. And for me, it's been a growth experience all the way through.
It was actually a bit of an emotional moment when I first looked through the completed telescope. I mean, I had been dreaming of this for so long. To actually have that dream fulfilled was pretty amazing. And working with the people on this project over the years has been also a really unexpected bonus and a real privilege to have such great people on the project.
The Black Nugget Lake Observatory houses the largest telescope in Western Canada that the public can look through at a dark site. Its existence is really an amazing feat that demonstrates what can be accomplished by a team of dedicated volunteers with a generous amount of help from supporting communities, companies, and organizations. Offering a world-class window on the universe, views through this telescope's eyepiece will thrill Albertans for generations.
Okay, wonderful. An amazing piece, Warren. Thank you for putting that together. Am I running the show here now, Frank? Okay.
Okay, I think we should be good now. Can everyone hear me okay? I'll need a thumbs up for confirmation. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. Yeah, let's make that full screen. There we go. Okay, so welcome to Astro Imaging Corner number 131. So for anyone who wants me to share their images, feel free to send them in to Astro Imaging Corner at edmontonrasc.com. You can also find the link at the RASC Edmonton Center website on the left there. So first image today is from Craig Sherris. This is the Pelican Nebula. And the Pelican Nebula, also known as IC 5070 or IC 5067, is a vast cloud of gas and dust stretching over 10 light years in diameter. And it's near another famous nebula, the North America Nebula, and is separated by it from a dark by a dark molecular cloud known as the Cygnus Wall. And this was taken with a StellariView 130mm refractor and a Player 1 Poseidon C camera. And it's a total of 13 hours and 30 minutes of data. Next one from Craig is the Cygnus Wall. And this is a region of concentrated star formation within the North America Nebula, NGC 7000. And this is in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan. It's around 1600 light years away from Earth and is glowing due to the emissions from the atoms of hydrogen. And again, taken with a 130mm StellariView refractor and a Orion Poseidon C camera, Player 1 Poseidon C camera. And this one was a total of about 8 hours of exposures. So absolutely beautiful shot and very nice processing. And the next one is from Hans. This is the Dumbbell Nebula, processed in HOO in PixInsight. And this was taken from Sherwood Park with a Celestron Edge HD 9.25 and a 0.7 focal reducer, and using the ASI 2600 MC camera. And Hans said that he keeps being amazed by what is possible with a one-shot color camera and narrowband filters, even from Bortle 7 or 8. And the filter used in this case was the Optlong L Extreme for the hydrogen alpha and the oxygen, and a separate Bader S2 filter for the S2. And this was a total of 4.2 hours with the L Extreme, and the RGB stars were 55 minutes in total. So beautiful detail, great job there. Up next from Hans is the Crescent Nebula. And this was again taken with the same setup from Sherwood Park and the same camera. And the Crescent was done in hydrogen, oxygen, oxygen in PixInsight, a total of 2.75 hours or 2.7 hours. And the RGB stars were 40 minutes in total. And this has been downsampled by a factor of 2 to make it more email friendly. But again, a phenomenal amount of detail there. And the last image from Hans is the Bubble Nebula in SHO. And this was taken with the same equipment and from the same place. And the total SHO exposure time was 8.5 hours, and the RGB stars were 80 minutes. And it's also been downsampled by a factor of 2. Up next is an image of Messier 33, the Triangulum Galaxy from Ray. And this was taken with an L Extreme filter using 300-second exposures, 600-second exposures with the L Extreme and 300-second exposures with the L Pro, using a QHY 268C camera and 132 millimeter refractor. And this was taken from the Blackfoot Lake staging area and stacked in APP and processed in Lightroom. And right there in the upper left of one of those arms, you can see that bright red region of hydrogen gas. Up next, we have NGC 891 from Ray. This is one of my favorite galaxies to look at visually just because of that striking dust lane in the middle. And this was also taken with the 132 millimeter refractor and the QHY 268 camera and stacked in APP and processed in Lightroom. Next is an image by Zeidler. I think this might be the first image submitted by Zed, so thanks for sending that in. And this is Venus and the moon. And so shot with a Nikon D5600 with a 55 to 200 millimeter lens at 55 millimeters. And the settings used were ISO 1600, f4, and 1/160th of a second. So great job. Up next is an image from Dave Mussel. This is the Eastern Veil Nebula. And it's an object that Dave says he has imaged a few times in the past. And this is part of a vast supernova remnant called the Cygnus Loop, which in its entirety occupies an area of the sky several times the size of the moon. And this is estimated to be about 2,400 light years away. And the dust and gas rich area contains large amounts of ionized sulfur, oxygen, and hydrogen. And this makes it an interesting object to image using narrowband filters tuned to the emissions from those atoms. And it's also a wonderful object to see in a telescope, although it requires a large aperture and a dark sky. And this image captured on 2 nights during the Northern Prairie Star Party in September consists of a total of 6 hours of imaging time using a QHY camera, Antlia narrowband filters, and a 5-inch refractor. And approximately 75 4-minute images were processed in PixInsight with the help of Blur Exterminator and Noise Exterminator, which are 2 plugins from RC Astro. And the final colors and framing was adjusted in Apple Photos. And this was cropped to roughly the same field of view as was seen with the 32-inch Unit Drew telescope during the Northern Prairie Star Party. And yeah, I also greatly enjoyed that view that night at the Northern Prairie Star Party. So I highly recommend everyone to take a look and see if they can see the veil through that gigantic scope. Up next, we have an image from Alan Hobbs. This is the California Nebula, also known as NGC 1499. And it's an emission nebula located in the constellation of Perseus. And it lies at a distance of about 1,000 light years from the Earth. And its fluorescence is due to excitation of the hydrogen beta line in the nebula by the nearby energetic O7 star Z Persei, also known as Menkib. And this photo was taken at the 2023 Northern Prairie Star Party. And this was a total of 59 subs of 1 minute each, totaling about 1 hour of integration time. And this was with the RASC 8 and the ASI 2600 MC camera using an Optolong L-Enhance filter. And this was processed in PixInsight and Photoshop. So great job, Alan. Up next, we have a video from Alistair Ling. So I will, since I can't play the video here, I will open it up on a separate folder here to share with you because it is a nice video. There we go. Oh, close that. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Alistair. That is, wow, that was quite some aurora. Okay, up next is a shot from Kevin Waddle, and this is Messier 31, the Andromeda Galaxy in luminance. And this was just a histogram stretch converted to JPEG with no other process. And actually the Sol Nebula, and this, yeah, you can see the blue colors, the golden colors over there. So this is right next to the Heart Nebula, just underneath the double cluster there, for anyone wondering. So again, absolutely beautiful shot, and thank you for sharing. Up next, we have a shot from Warren Finlay. And Warren says that this was a nightscape he took on a rock climbing trip to the City of Rocks, a U.S. National Reserve in Idaho. And Warren used a speed light to light the foreground. Exposure was 30 seconds at ISO 6400, and the lens used was a Rokinon 12mm fisheye on a Canon 6D. So beautiful capture there. And you can also see Scorpio in the background there, and Sagittarius, and the Lagoon Nebula there. Oh, excellent job. And up next is one of my images from this past weekend. So on Friday night, I'd gone out to the Wilson Cooley Observatory just south of Calgary, and I wanted to C 2023, and this was on a Ioptron Skyguider, and I just finished processing this in PixInsight. And to the left of the comet, near the bottom left corner, I can see a dark nebula as well, so I'll have to see if I can track down which one that was. And this image was heavily cropped because it looks pretty tiny on the full frame sensor. Up next was a recent image I had taken of Jupiter, Io, and Europa from my driveway. And Io is the one next to Jupiter, and Europa is the one further away. And one interesting fact I always like sharing about Europa is that the under surface ocean of Europa has about twice as much water as all of the Earth's oceans combined. And this was a time lapse I had made of that. But since I can't get the time lapse to play for some reason today on any of the videos, I'll just share it separately here. So you can see Io going behind Jupiter there. And the last image of the night was this one that I had taken with the same Canon 6D and Rokinon 135mm lens. And this is what I call Orion's second belt. Instead of the three belt stars, is three nebulae in a row. At the very top right, you can see the Orion Nebula. In the middle, you can see the Horsehead Nebula. And at the very bottom left, you can see Casper's Friendly Ghost Nebula. So they also make an equidistant belt, just like the three stars in Orion's belt make. And this was a total of 15 minutes of exposures at 135mm, also cropped a little bit. Okay, that is it. Thank you all for attending, and I will pass this back to Jay.
Okay, some amazing pictures once again. Okay, this brings us to the final segment of the meeting tonight, and that's just some announcements. We have quite a few things going on, and so I'm going to ask Jeff Robertson to come on up and tell us about a couple items coming up this month.
Okay, hi. If you guys, and I see a lot of new faces here, if anyone here is looking at buying their first telescope, we are once again going to put on how to buy a telescope on Thursday, November the 30th. Clayton Knoll and myself will be doing this. It will be on Zoom. The link is on our website. And in a shameless plug, on the 29th, the Wednesday before, I have my What's Up over Edmonton for the month of December.
Thank you, Jeff. very well attended, usually the how to buy a telescope. So if you know anybody, send them the link, have them attend. It's very informative. We also have the observers meeting coming up, hosted by John Stolte and Berta Beltran as well, and that's in December. That's the next one anyway. And then our next meeting is Monday, December 11th, if you can believe it. We're already up to December. So I think with that, we will now go to the break. We will have to end the Zoom session. There are snacks here, so please grab yourself a snack. I think they prefer no snacks in the IMAX theater, but if folks could start making their way to the IMAX theater for the second half of the meeting. So other than that, I won't be talking to you after that. So thanks everybody for attending. Have yourself a good night, and I call the meeting adjourned.
Jay, can I just say one final thing just before you? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Just on November 24th, the University of Alberta will be having their ISET, their space symposium. They'll have a speaker here in the Zeidler Dome from 7 till about 8:30. Tickets are $10. They're online at the Telus World of Science Edmonton website. Christopher Hurd at the U of A is actually putting this one together. The speaker is I can't remember his name. He's Dr. Oz. I can't remember his full title. I don't have it in front of me here, but he's going to be talking about going back to the moon with both robotics and with humans being part of Canada. So what Canada is actually doing for the up and coming lunar mission. So if anyone wants to see that, that'll be taking place on Friday, November 24th here in the Zeidler Dome from 7 till 8:30.
Okay, thanks for that, Frank. All right, thanks everybody. Let's grab a break and we'll see you in the IMAX theater. Oh, we have another.
Anybody's interested in being certified on the green laser pointers again, we'll be running another course on Wednesday, December the 6th, 7:30 on Zoom. You'll be able to go to the website to get the link from there. So if anybody's interested, just join in at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. See you in the IMAX.
And just so everyone knows, the pre-show will be starting around 8:45, so you don't have to get down there until about 8:45, so you can take about a 15-minute break and then get into your seats in the IMAX, and we'll be doing the show brand new.